Welcome to the LinkedIn Famous Podcast, the show where we get real about what it takes to build a personal brand on LinkedIn that gets real business results. We're talking about driving revenue from a personal LinkedIn profile by sharing real and authentic stories and points of view. I'm Brad Zomick, your host and the founder of Spectrumer, a personal brand consultancy that helps founders and executives get LinkedIn famous. Join me for unfiltered conversations from the trenches of LinkedIn. We'll meet CEOs, go-to-market executives, subject matter experts, and company employees with blockbuster LinkedIn results. We'll unpack strategy and leave you with tactical advice to grow your personal brand and demand for your company's products and services. All right, LinkedIn hustlers, it's time to level up. Hello world, welcome to the LinkedIn Famous Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Zomick. Today I'm excited. We have one of the early adopters for LinkedIn founder brand, Max Altschuler, a pioneer in the go-to-market thought leadership trend. He's done so much over the years. I'll give him a quick intro here. Hard to intro because he's done so much. Max started his career at Udemy. He was the first SDR and he started pioneering sales development there. He started writing his own blog, which became Sales Hacker. Many of you probably know him from Sales Hacker, one of the first online sales communities. He also ran the first two SaaSers while he was growing Sales Hacker. Sales Hacker was later acquired by Outreach, probably about 5-10 years into that journey. He ran marketing at Outreach for 4 years. While he was at the company, it grew probably 9 or 10x. Now, 3 years ago, he started the GTM Fund, and he has raised $75 million across 2 funds. More recently, incubated and co-founded Operator through GTM Fund with Mark Kozaklau. Along the way, he's also advised and invested in some of the hottest names in SaaS: Gong, Drift, Apollo, Catalyst, Mutiny, Writer AI. If that's not enough, he also wrote 3 books: Hacking Sales, Career Hacking, Sales Engagement. Finally, he's pioneered a number of playbooks and trends and categories. There's sales development, there's community, events, and sales engagement. Welcome to the LinkedIn Famous Podcast, Max. Great to have you. That is a very impressive rap sheet. Is there anything else you'd like to expand upon in your background?
You did a great job. Probably most proud of the 3 amazing kids I have at home, my wife, 2 dogs, out here in Paradise Valley, Arizona. Yeah, that'd probably be the only thing they had.
Yes, as a parent, I know that the hardest startups are having kids. 3, God bless you, I have 2, and that's pretty hard.
It's challenging, but I'd say worth it. Just like startups.
Awesome. I like to ask all of our guests, tell us something about yourself that the audience couldn't learn about you from LinkedIn. I know you're a parent from LinkedIn because you post about that sometimes.
Yeah, you know what? I'm a pretty open book. I really enjoy sharing things. Early in my career, I had written a lot about sales hacking. I had a blog called Max Talks Hacks. It was like the initial sales hacker. I would just write about all the stuff that I was doing at Udemy to grow sales quickly. We were hacking sales there. I was hesitant to press publish, and I had a friend out there who just said, just do it, man. If you get criticism, whatever, but if you help just one person, it's worth it. And so at that point on, I was like, all right, I'm just going to share everything. Because what I'm going through, there's 7 billion people out there. There's high odds that there's other people going through what I'm going through. And if I share it, maybe that'll help just one person, and that'll be great. Everything got started from Max Talks Hacks, which has no place on the LinkedIn. For me, I'm a fairly open book. I enjoy sharing kind of trials and tribulations, and the way that I've done things is fairly unconventional to get to the point in my career where I am right now. I never really worked at like large corporations when they were large corporations. I've always been at the startup level, doing things the way that I think they should be done, coming at everything from first principles thinking. What if there was no playbook on this? How would you do it from scratch? So that's just been my history. So a lot of the stuff is out there. But yeah, I'll give you the answer to the question. Max Talks Hacks. That was the catalyst for everything.
Some great takeaways there. Just being yourself and letting it all hang out. People love the unpolished, like truth, the half-baked ideas and the failures. There's a lot to really learn from that. So the more vulnerable you are, the more you can grow on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the start of your journey. You were an early adopter to LinkedIn. You were one of the first prolific writers here that kind of used that to grow your personal brand, to grow your businesses. You did it before there was a proof point. Today, there's a lot of people. There's Sam Jacobs, there's Alina from Chili Piper, there's Adam Robinson. What was your mindset back then when no one was doing it?
Yeah, LinkedIn had just come out with the news feed. I think it was like 2016, 2017. At first, like everything, it's like, what is this? Okay, it's like the Facebookification of LinkedIn. Just like now they're doing like the TikTokification of LinkedIn. But at the time, it was pretty new, and it allowed you to share longer form thoughts, but to a news feed to all of your followers. I had Gaetano on the team, and we were tinkering with posts on there, promoting our events, things like that. What you started to see is that authentic, valuable, actionable content was getting like a huge uptick. So what I started doing is I would just write the things that were on my mind, career lessons, sales lessons, whatever it was. And once I started getting this pretty big following where I started seeing, wow, look how many likes I'm getting, look how many comments I'm getting. Then they came out with impressions where you could see on the back end, wow, this is crazy. I'm getting out there to a pretty large audience. This one's getting 1 million impressions or whatever it is. I copy and pasted all of my posts, my long form posts, into a Google Doc. And underneath each one of them, I would write, this is how many likes, comments, and impressions it got. Now, the flaw in that is I don't know how the algorithm works and what it's showing. But for me, it was a great way to understand what do people want more of? What type of content do people want more of? And then go back through this doc and quickly look and see, okay, this post does really well. They want more of this type of stuff. This one doesn't do very well. They want less of this type of stuff. And you can give more to your audience and still be authentic to yourself in what's on your mind and your content, but doing it in what's going to give the people what they want. What I realized after 6 months of doing this is I had about 15,000 words of really educational content. And I had already written my book, Hacking Sales. So I said, okay, what if I created a book called Career Hacking and just pulled all these words together into a self-published book? That's one I didn't want to publish through Wiley. I wanted to keep it self-published because it was like my Bible, so to speak. It was like, here's how I got to where I am today. I didn't want to give up the rights to that. So self-published that, put it on Amazon, did very well, and was able to promote it through the news feed the same way. So, hey, if you like this content, go to the book. If you like this content, go to the book. That kind of just kicked off the entire thing. And as we went along, worked really well, got acquired by Outreach, we started doing the LinkedIn kind of takeovers. And that was like the next big thing. And I think Dave Gerhardt at Drift did a really good job at this. Eventually, Udi and the Gong folks ended up doing the same thing. I think Sales Off ended up doing it. A lot of people ended up kind of copying variations of the playbook. If we had news we needed to get out there, between me, Scott, the rest of the team, all of our reps, our leadership, we blew up Manny's LinkedIn. We were able to do these LinkedIn takeovers. Humble beginnings, but over time, we treated it like any channel that a growth marketer would treat it as, except it's got this kind of injection of authenticity and person over company than really any other channel.
Cool. I have so many questions from that take there. Number one, I want to talk about the content strategy of Sales Hacker and Outreach. Would you say that your posts on LinkedIn were a litmus test for what you might put over in like a long form blog? How did that work from LinkedIn to the content strategy? What came first?
It was a great place to test content. So I think you use it for a couple of things. One, you test content, you see what people want more of, especially once you like define your ICP, you can even weed through who are the likes, who are the comments, what are people saying. So that was extremely helpful. There were times in which we had events or things we wanted to promote, and we're like, what's the best way to promote these things? So like you almost come at it from a different angle. So we had our user conference at Outreach was Unleash in 2019 was the first one that I came in and ran at Paradise Point. And you could write a link, you could have your whole team, your whole entire company write a LinkedIn post like why you should attend Unleash. Maybe you do. And maybe it highlights a speaker. Here's the speaker I'm most excited about looking forward to seeing speak. Cool, and you have everybody in your company post on LinkedIn their own take on like the speaker they're most excited in seeing. And I think that builds brand for the individual, builds brand for the company, gets everything. Like everyone who's on LinkedIn that's in your ICP will see this multiple times, and it's like great advertising. But then there's like the non-obvious stuff. So we did the 90s party at Unleash, which was instead of doing a regular party at your conference, we said we're going to do like a 90s cover band. We're going to tell everybody to dress in like their best 90s gear, puka shell necklaces, frosted tips, whatever you got, all the stuff, Jinko jeans, you
Booty
name
and
it.
the Blowfish.
Yeah, exactly. Leading up to the conference, we promoted the 90s party, and we had all of our employees post a picture of themselves from the 90s. And so post your favorite picture of yourself from the 90s, and like underneath it say, yep, here's a picture of me from 1996 doing X, Y, and Z. So excited for Unleashed because we got this big 90s party. That blew up because who doesn't want to see somebody you know professionally being a little vulnerable, being a little funny? I posted a picture of myself with Eminem style platinum hair. It's like you get a ton of likes, you get a ton of engagement, but you also get people seeing this and saying like, these are people I want to do business with. People who could be fun, vulnerable, authentic, and not stuck up, right? That are going to post a picture of themselves, make cheeky, making fun of themselves from 1996. This looks fun. It's not just some boring conference party. Like they're actually making an effort to do something here. So I actually think there's so much value in how do we promote this thing without directly promoting this thing type piece, right? Like it wasn't just like, hey, go post that this event is on this date and here's some sales content. It was, let's get creative with it.
Let me ask you a question about takeovers. So getting employees to post on LinkedIn, I've seen personally, I've been inside SaaS companies before, can be hit or miss. Some people love doing it, some people don't. Some companies have been very successful. I think Gong is one of them. What did you do, maybe at Outreach, it's a good example because it's a bigger company. What did you do to make people successful and help them set up for a good takeover? Obviously, the 90s party is great because I would have been out there with my Sublime album, my Pacific Sunwear gear. People can get creative. But what about you're doing a product launch or promoting something else? How do you get people excited about something like that? How do you give them agency and creativity within some swim lanes?
Yeah, so I think the most important folks that need to post are the go-to-market folks most of the time because they're interfacing with customers the most. So like their LinkedIn is comprised of customers or potential customers. They're the most likely people to get behind this type of stuff. Their LinkedIns are already pretty active. It's probably a natural part of their personalities, all those types of things. So I think there's definitely hiring from a culture standpoint, hiring the right people who get behind this type of stuff. And it's a leadership thing. CMO, CRO, CEO have to adopt it if you want everybody else to adopt it, and so on and so forth, RVPs, et cetera, cascading down. Then you got to prepare everybody. So like we would create all these docs that go out to our internal team before an event and say, hey, here are images you could use. Here's sample copy. Please do not use the exact sample copy. Sub your part in here. Make sure you end it with this sentence right here so everybody knows what the CTA is, et cetera, et cetera. You even can put a calendar invite on everybody's calendar. So it's like, even if they can't make that time, they see it, they know, oh, I got to post this thing today. So you make it as easy for everybody as possible. But ultimately, I think there's a little bit of, especially on the GTM side, the incentive, which is, do you want to sell more? Do you want to do more business? Like, you should want your customers to attend this conference. When your customers that attend the conference are 50% more likely to buy than customers that don't attend the conference. There's all sorts of stats you can pull together on these types of things. And oh, by the way, good sales reps have been around the block know that they should get to see their people face to face, and that bringing them to a conference that's going to talk about all the new products and allow them to meet leadership and all that is going to advance the deal. So if you've got a sales force that doesn't want to promote your conference and doesn't want their customers to come to it, you should probably be worried about that sales force. I don't think that it's like some crazy over the top thing to expect that your salespeople will want to get people there. And they're going to benefit from that in their entire career. They take their LinkedIn with them. They should want to do this. The company is supporting them to do that.
Yeah, it's a great example. Mark and Andy Mewborn also came from Outreach. They're great examples who kind of use that as a springboard to really grow their career. So I think the recipe, it sounds like, for a great takeover is top down, kind of make it part of the DNA and hiring people who want to do that, giving them a little bit of a playbook. You mentioned the book. I want to talk a little bit about that. I think you're clearly writing is a part of your DNA. It sounded like the first couple of books, you already had written a bunch of content and that was the base. When you wrote Sales Engagement, did you have a different plan? Or having already written a couple of books, did you use LinkedIn to kind of map out what you were going to write? Or would it kind of happen in a similar way where it's like, oh, I just wrote all this stuff, let's do something with it?
It's so different. Writing is one of those things that's like different for everybody. I personally, if you were like you're going to write a book and you can write like a little bit every day for 365 days, I would never get a book done. It would never happen. Yeah. I have to be like, okay, I'm going to be in this place for a week. By the end of this week, the book's going to be done. So like I'll do everything leading up to that week to get prepared to get the book done. So I wrote my first book, Hacking Sales from Bali, in 6 days. It was like 27,000 words. I wrote Career Hacking 4 or 5 days from Bali, and I wrote Sales Engagement in 4 or 5 days from Miami. All of it is like getting everything prepared, the skeleton, the structure, the excerpts, everything prepared before you go and sit down. And that sit down time is tying it all together, making sure it flows, making sure you fill in all the blanks, fill in all the gaps, et cetera, et cetera. For Hacking Sales, I sent out a type form. I wanted to create like the definitive guide to sales tech in 2015 because I was running the Sales Hacker media company and conferences. We talked a lot about leveraging technology in your sales process. Before that, it was like email, phone, CRM. And all of a sudden it was like outreach, Gong, seismic. There were so many different things you can use as a sales force, and not a lot of these big companies knew about it. So I sent out a type form to 70 different sales tech companies, up and coming and bigger ones. It said, tell me what you do, give me a use case, what's your category, et cetera, et cetera. I got maybe 65 responses back. I took those responses and I put them into one Google Doc, and that was like my repository. Then I built a skeleton of what are the chapters of steps in a sales process and which technologies fall under which chapter. So for me, it was like, okay, now I have the skeleton. I'm going to write everything I know about how to run that process and where these technologies fit in, and I can copy and paste in a use case from that company, even to showcase like how you would use their technology in that process. So I got so much help writing those 27,000 words, right? Like almost half of that book, maybe more, was written for me. Then Career Hacking, like I said before, I was writing that via LinkedIn posts. By the time I sat down to write it, I had 15,000 words. So what did I do? I put the skeleton outline together, and then I copy and pasted everything I had written into the parts of the outline that they would fit in, and it was filling in the blanks and stringing everything together. So the third time around, when we did Sales Engagement, the minute I got the job at Outreach to run marketing, they told me that we had Dreamforce in a month, we had a booth, nothing else, we had a conference in 6 months, and we had basically the venue paid for and nothing else. We were just starting to build the sales engagement category. It was us and SalesLoft mainly at the top building this category. We needed to be the ones who like you thought of when you thought of sales engagement. That was like core to us. I called up Wiley, who I'd sold the rights to my first book to. I said, hey, I want to write a follow-up to Hacking Sales. The co-author is going to be my CEO. We raised money, $200 million from Microsoft and a bunch of other companies at a $500 million valuation. We definitely want this book. They were like, yes, we're in. Okay. I was like, it's very important that we have a copy of every book on every seat at our conference in March. She's like, if you want that to happen, I need the book done in a month. I'm like, okay, great. Lofty expectations. I was able to buy the salesengagement.com domain name from a consultant that owned it. I bartered with him, gave him a little bit of cash, and gave him 2 webinars on saleshacker.com because instead of giving him money, I can give business. And we got salesengagement.com. We launched the podcast at Dreamforce, teased the book coming out with the book cover and everything at Unleash. We created this like kind of lightning strike category creation moment where it's okay, for the next 6 months, all you're going to hear about is sales engagement from us leading up to the book coming out. And at the conference, we unleashed the Outreach Galaxy, which was like our app store essentially, which allowed you to use Outreach as your single pane of glass and then connect all these different applications to it. To write the book in a month, I did the same thing that I did previously. I got sales engagement, I got Manny. He doesn't have time to go write that much of it. I got Mark Cosaglow, who I put on as a third author because he knows, as the CRO of the business, SVP of sales of the business, he consulted with a lot of our customers and knew a lot of the little nuances of how to leverage outreach and sales engagement inside of your sales process. We brought him in. And then I had a woman named Jade on my team who essentially I gave her kind of like a playlist or a checklist and said, here's the outline for the book. Go to a bunch of these different customers. I'll help you line them up. Get excerpts from them so that they help you write them. You want your customers writing the book with you because they give you a ton of validation in the book. So if you can say, then Thomas, the CRO from Carbon Black, I gave you these 3 paragraphs of like amazing sales leadership content, then it's okay, this guy not only endorses this book, he's part of this whole movement. So if you're reading this book and you're at a 1,000-person company, you and them are on the same wavelength, and this isn't some book that a bunch of startups are getting value out of. Like big companies, VMware executives are getting value out of this. So along the whole way, we were able to take those excerpts, ingest them, put them into the layout of the book, and same thing. We go in, we fill in the gaps. There were times where I'd tap in Mark, I'd be like, hey, I need 2,000 words from you on like how this process connects to this process. You know it better than anybody else. He'd come in and write that. We created a really good book. In a month doing that, we were able to outsource a lot of the copy, but not in a lazy way, in a very meaningful way, because that's what you want to do when you build out these books, especially these corporate-led ones.
That's impressive. Sales engagement was slightly different, but a similar formula. The last question I'll ask in the book, you basically continue to promote the book we're using the content from the book on LinkedIn and driving people back to the...
Yeah, and then we do giveaways, we give a copy of the book, we used them in our sales process. I remember a VC telling me he went with the CEO of one of our competitors to somebody's office, and there were like 3 books on the table. It was like one of their customers. They were like, fuck, Max was here. It's great. We're there first. We're in people's offices. They see it. It talks about outreach. It's got our logo and our stuff all over it. It gives us kind of the authority in the space that our reps are able to send out, and then we're able to post excerpts on it onto LinkedIn. It's like a huge repository of content that we're able to cite and source.
What would you say writing a book, how far does it fuel your LinkedIn content strategy for the future? Does that have legs for months, years?
It should be hyper relevant for years. The content will change. It depends what it's on. Hacking sales, methodology, super relevant. Technology, not relevant. These were tools that were available 10 years ago, right? 2015, I wrote that. A bunch of those have been acquired, have shut down, whatever it is. There's so much new technology. I could go write hacking sales too right now if I wanted to, and it'd be a completely different book. But a lot of the methodologies are the same. In some cases, the methodologies have stopped working because they become noise. This is the thing about Operator. It's okay, cool. When I wrote hacking sales, signals were really hard to get. So if you had them and used them, they worked really well because you were one of the only ones using them. Now signals are really easy to get. A bunch of these companies that sell signals have a lot of customers. So if you get a signal and you act on that signal, the same way 60 other people do at the same time, that signal's meaningless. The person receiving that outreach it's going to be drowned in noise. Back then, it was really hard to understand who raised money. If you were selling sales products to VPs of sales, you found out that a company raised a Series B, you said, hey, congrats on the Series B, we should talk. You might have a pretty good chance of connecting with that VP of sales about that conversation because you're doing the math. They got budget now. They just raised money. If you can connect the dots there, you can have a pretty good connect rate on that. Now, with Crunchbase and all the other signals that are built into ZoomInfo and 6sense and all these types of things, the minute you get that signal that blah, blah, blah raised a Series B, so does the rest of their client base. They all reach out at the same time to that VP of sales with the same message, hey, congrats on the Series B, check out my product. Now that doesn't work, right? Like the playbook has to evolve. I could write hacking sales too now, but your question was like, is that content still relevant? I'd probably need to evolve it. I'd probably need to like say, here's what used to work, here's what now works. That could be actually like a pretty cool thing to do on LinkedIn, right? It's like old way, new way. Now, career hacking, a lot of that stuff still works. Almost everything in that book's probably still relevant or like relevant with a slight tweak. Sales engagement, still new enough where most of it's still relevant, but a lot of the platforms have evolved. It really depends. But much of the methodology stuff, strategy stuff can still play.
Got it. What does your resource and system look like today to maintain your presence? How is that different from what you did when you started?
I'd say my relationship with writing on LinkedIn and posting on LinkedIn is somewhat cyclical these days. If I have great things to say, I'll say it. If I don't, I won't. I don't really care much about the traffic it drives in one way or another. I don't necessarily need it anymore for my career the way I used to. It doesn't serve me the same way. If I were a SaaS CMO and I were selling to GTM Suite, I think it would serve me massively. Not so much now, working with founders, working with VCs, working with GTM leaders as LPs, like, yes, little bits here and there. It's actually like way more important that everything I say is high quality than just saying a lot of different stuff over and over again, build my following. I also have other priorities in life now, so I spend a lot more time on it. And there are things that I want to share and things that I want to make sure like are words chosen wisely versus what I did when I was younger. There are definitely things I regret saying and doing that when I was younger it was fine. Now I'm a custodian of a bunch of people's money. Like, you have to grow up and mature. There are a bunch of beefs we had with SalesLoft and other companies that I think were great for eyeballs and great for marketing. Like, looking back on it, we're pretty childish on both sides. And like, yeah, that doesn't serve me anymore. I don't need to do that. I don't have a reason. I don't have a competitor. I don't have any of that kind of stuff. And I've grown up. So I'd post less, post higher quality stuff. And so, right now the resources are just me, myself, and I. If my team has something that they want to share, or a portfolio company has something that they want to share, they'll send it our way. I can put my own spin on it and get it out there.
Got it. It's very different from what it used to be. Let's talk big picture. What has been the impact of LinkedIn on your career, your companies, and just your life?
Huge. I think LinkedIn really helped grow the media business at Sales Hacker. I think LinkedIn really helped put us on the map at Outreach in a big way. I don't think customers and potential customers are really reading like your corporate newsletter. So if they're going to find out about new product announcements, sometimes it's a GIF in a LinkedIn post that they're going to see it and share it. Be like, wow, this is great. I think it's massively helped grow Outreach, the category, in turn, my own career in that sense. I have seen the old school CMO playbooks, and I think a lot of the new school stuff works a lot better. And LinkedIn is a big part of that. I think if you neglect LinkedIn and your entire company's presence, you're going to be pretty far behind your competitors. And like you said at the top of the hour, Sam Jacobs doing a fantastic job. I think like a lot of Pavilion folks probably end up finding out about Pavilion from his LinkedIn profile. Adam Robinson, same thing. There's some cringy stuff he does, but it works. Mark Cosaglow, who I love and I invest in his company, same thing. They try everything. You see what sticks, what works. You double down on the things that work. I think a place that people need to be playing at all times if you're in that space, if you're selling a product, especially in GTM.
That's some great advice for founders and CEOs. What is the wildest thing that's ever happened because of something you've done on LinkedIn?
Sold Sales Hacker to Outreach. I'd be remiss to say that LinkedIn didn't help that in a pretty meaningful way. I have 60-something thousand followers now. Maybe when that acquisition happened, I had 20 or 30,000 followers, but that was a lot at the time. So like, I couldn't post anything without you seeing it. If you were in like the GTM space, I was like a mini, influencer, celeb in the space. A lot of people gravitated towards me in that regard. I got a bunch of advisories and things like that because of it. I don't think I would have gotten a lot of those or even angel investment opportunities without that. It massively buoyed and supported the media companies, which helped put my brand more on a pedestal. I don't know if I could point to anything like fully directly, I got this massive deal from here. But people knew who I were, and that was helpful. You end up being like a mini celebrity. I don't know if that's directly from LinkedIn or the books or whatever it is, but I'd love to think that LinkedIn helps that. There was one deal at Outreach. I was in London. I had an afternoon to kill. I was out there doing an event for us and meeting some customers. Facebook was not a customer. They were on a competitor. I go on my map. I'm like looking for food. The Facebook HQ just pops up on the map. Just shows the little icon. I ping on Slack the rep who has the account. I'm like, hey, you're working with, I won't say his name, but you're working with X over there. He's in London. He's the point of contact. Do you want me to try and meet him while I'm here? I have time this afternoon. She's like, yes, definitely. She makes the introduction, and we end up going we schedule an hour. I was like 2 or 3 hours after that. We went for a walk. He's, listen, you guys are the same as SalesLoft. I'm not super interested, blah, blah, blah. I'm changing, but I just wanted to meet you because I follow you on blah, blah. Okay, fine. Didn't challenge him on that. Totally. I'm just happy to help you with like your process then, your setup of your sales engagement. What are like 3 things you wish you could do that you're not currently doing? Let me see if I can help you with that. He starts naming these things. After he says the first thing, I'm like, oh, you can't do that in SalesLoft because in Outreach, here's how you do it. He's like, oh, I didn't know that. And then he says the second thing. He said the same thing. Whoa, you can't do that? Here's how you would do that in Outreach. And by the end of the meeting, we ended up spending like 90 minutes together. We walked back to the office. He's like, all right, I think I got to talk to the rep. When I'll schedule some time. I want to see how we can do these things that like I can't do right now. We ended up winning the deal a couple months later. 1, that's hustle. 2, it's good salesmanship. But 3, I don't think without kind of having a LinkedIn presence, being connected on LinkedIn. He's in London, I'm in Seattle. He would even know who I was other than being like the head of marketing at Outreach without being able to follow my posts, see what I was about, have that kind of somewhat relationship from afar.
That's a great example of how to just drive awareness and then create opportunities, something from nothing. You mentioned a couple of people who are active on LinkedIn right now that are crushing it. Who else are you following or learning from on LinkedIn?
Mark Costaglo is great, CEO of Operator and was SVP of sales at Outreach. Alexa Grabel from Pocus does a really good job. May Habib from Writer, another one who does a really good job. Brendan Short, Kyle Coleman, people who share actionable tidbits on things. You listed Newborn. He's another good one from the Outreach crew. Who else? Yeah, Sam does a great job. Adam, Alina, you name it. Yep.
Awesome. You advise a lot of founders, talk to a lot of founders. What do you tell them when they're asked you questions about go-to-market, specifically around LinkedIn and driving awareness? Where do you tell them to start?
Everybody's different. Some of this comes very naturally to some people. Other folks really need to work with their marketing teams, potentially a content person on the team. Really dive in, have an hour a week or something like that, where let's dive into a couple topics. Let's dive into a couple things about the business that we want to share. Let's be really intentional about what we're sharing here. Some businesses are different than others too, where it's okay, we don't want to get ahead of our skis on XYZ functionality. We're not going to talk about that yet. Okay, good. Then it's a good thing the CEO didn't just pop off and share prematurely like you see a lot of CEOs do sometimes. I think it's really about getting with your marketing team, putting a plan in place, making sure to authentically share, humanize the CEO. Even when we did Manny's social, which we did for a long time, and he built a great following, when we had the humanization bucket, we'd be like, let's do one post every other week of just dad life and CEO life outside of the workplace. We had the product features and functionality bucket. Let's make sure we're highlighting something in the context of the workflow and the product that we have. We had like the macro landscape, just like, hey, what's your viewpoint on like the state of sales and the state of GTM or the state of technology? Just be like somebody who you would go to as an authority in the space to understand where it's going. You should have some sort of thoughtful approach in how often you're posting on each one of these things. Maybe you need the humanizing one once a month, the product one twice a month, and then the landscape one once a week or something like that. That's what people come to you for. That's what people would expect to see. You have some kind of thoughtful approach that way. But you should build out a plan with your marketing team, CEO to marketing team, and understand what the goal is, what the game plan is.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for the amazing advice and sharing your perspective just on what's going on in the world of LinkedIn and go-to-market. I'd love to give you the opportunity to tell me what's going on at Go-to-Market Fund, what you're up to, how people can get involved.
Definitely. We're on Fund 2 of the GTM Fund, Go-to-Market Fund. We've got a $50 million fund, and we invest in all B2B SaaS. The unique thing about our fund is we've got about 300 LPs who are all VP, C-level sales, marketing, customer success leaders from companies like OpenAI, Rippling, Snowflake, AWS, Salesforce, Microsoft, Datadog, Procore, you name it. They've been there, done that. We could meaningfully help our portfolio companies in all things go to market, whether that be playbooks or candidate placement or customer intros, you name it. Always looking for great founders to talk to and invest in. Plenty of capital to do it. Obviously, always looking for more GTM leaders who want to join as LPs in the fund. It's been a great community. We bought back my old media company, Sales Hacker, from Outreach, rebranded it, relaunched it as GTM Now, cleaned it up a little bit, cleaned up the list. That growth is accelerating. Media company's a meaningful asset for us. Sophie Buenasasi, we hired, who was a VP of marketing previously, to run the media side of the business out of Vancouver. So I got a nice little team out of Vancouver now. Yeah, hit us up. Check us out at GTM Now, which is the new media entity, and also on the fund side, GTM Fund.
Everybody go check out the GTM Fund. Their newsletter, GTM Now, is pretty awesome as well. They have a podcast. Thank you so much, Max, for sharing your knowledge, perspective, and we'll see you out there on the LinkedIn feed.
Awesome. Sounds good.
If you enjoyed this episode, follow Brad and Spectimer on LinkedIn for hot takes and tactical executive branding advice. For the readers in the audience, subscribe to LinkedIn Famous on Substack. And if you really loved this episode, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting platform of your choice. Until next time, stay bold, authentic, and keep on creating.